everyone, I'm Sophie from Year 13 and welcome back to the Expo. I'm lucky to be joined today with Mike from HCL. Welcome, Mike.
Hi, Sophie. Thank you.
Thanks
Pleased
for
to be on.
joining us. Look, I'd love to start off with perhaps you could explain to our audience what is HCL and what do they do in Australia?
Okay, so HCL is it's an international IT company. So we're quite large, and in Australia we have around about 2,500 people that are working within Australia and New Zealand. And we also have people that work from offshore, typically India or Sri Lanka or Vietnam, that also support Australian customers. So what do we do? Well, if you do online banking, if you do online shopping, if you have a Cricket Australia app, any of those sorts of things, that's the work that we do. So we develop the applications, we support the applications, and we run them from day to day, as well as support all the hardware and the infrastructure that takes to run them. So any large organisation that needs IT, we're likely to be working for them in the background there.
Nice. So HCL probably has interacted with many of our audience members without them realising.
Yeah, correct, Sophie. Yeah, so it's quite amazing. And of course, we just take IT for granted. And what we're using every day on our laptops, our phones, whatever. There's a lot of work that goes on behind that, and we need a lot of people to do that work. So hence the programs that we're putting in place.
Nice. And could you tell me a little bit more about the opportunities with HCL that young Australians have?
Yeah, sure. So what's happening, Sophie, is within Australia, we graduate very few people from our universities in IT compared to what the industry needs. So at the moment, out of our universities come about 5,000 people a year who graduate across the country. But the industry, and because of IT, accelerating so fast, we need between 30 and 40,000 people. So we've got to start building the skills for young people. And we can't wait until they've gone through university. First of all, there won't be enough people, but also we can't wait that long. So what we're doing is we're working on a program that's commencing now that we take school leavers. And so for this year, we're asking for people who left school in 2018, 2019 or 2020. If they're interested, we're prepared to take them on. We train them. So it'll be 3 to 6 months intensive training, which we don't charge for that. So that's at HCL's cost. And then we start placing those people into our customer sites, working alongside our experienced people who will be mentoring them and helping them along. And then there's the view that we can move that to a full-time job. So it's quite an exciting opportunity. It means that people can learn on the job. And at the same time, we give the opportunity to support them to do a university degree, if that's what they choose to do. Or if they're already enrolled in a university degree and want to continue, we'll support them with that, both financially, but help them with their studies, etc. So yeah, it's a huge opportunity. And I don't think anything like this really exists in the IT industry at present.
Sounds amazing. And I understand this is the HCL TechBee program you're speaking about. What should students do if they're interested to get involved?
Yeah, sure. So there is a link and we'll provide that link to you, Sophie, so that they can go there. They can have a look at a bit more information about the program, how it works, how long it takes, what's involved. And if they're interested, they can put an application in of interest. It's not an application for a job as such, but just to register interest. And we have a local counsellor, a lady called Vaishnavi. She'll give them a call and have a chat to them and just explain it a little more one-on-one.
Amazing. And what type of attributes do you think an HCL TechBee student should have?
Yeah, okay. So first of all, they want to learn is the key thing. And when we start, we actually test for what we call learnability. So there's no IQ tests as such. There's no technical test to start with. It's just seeing that people are keen to learn and have the ability to learn and have and aptitude towards IT. They will need to have done maths at high school. But even if they haven't, perhaps talk to us and we'll see what we can do to help bridge that out. So it's quite an easy start, and all the learning initially is done virtually, so it doesn't matter where the students are located. Even in rural communities, we'll encourage that. And when it comes to the point where there is some on-site training, we'll organise what we do from there. But we're looking at all locations throughout Australia.
Amazing. And this is the pilot program in Australia. However, it's
Yeah.
an established program internationally. Do you mind speaking towards that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So we've been doing this program in other regions, and particularly in India, where the company's headquartered. So they're in their 5th year over there, and have had quite a few thousand students come through with that, and then gone on into roles within HCL and are happily employed there. We've just started in the US as well, but Australia and New Zealand is where we're really pushing a big pilot for it. So it's a great opportunity for from a ground up start for people to get involved.
Completely. And what does a day in the life of a TechBee student look like, perhaps in year one?
Yeah, in year one, so in the first few months, it'll be an entirely virtual training, but there'll also be the opportunity to come to the HCL offices, get to meet people, do a bit of learning from there as well. And we'll be streaming the students, depending on whether if they've got interest in the digital side of things or cloud, or if they want to go into security. So there'll be different training depending on which stream they want to go into. Perhaps they might want to go into coding or application support. All of those streams are available, and their courses are customized depending on what sort of work the student wants to do. And then, sorry, Sophie, you're going to ask a question.
I was going to say, how do you students identify which areas of interest to them? How do you allow them to have a taster?
Yeah, okay. So that would come from speaking with the counsellor, so Vaish, and also some of the training people. The very first subjects are generalised subjects, so they don't have to choose straight away, and they'll get a bit of an idea as they get started. And when they get to talk to some of the HCL people in the local offices, they'll be able to ask questions and get a better idea which way is best for them to go.
Nice. And I think I interrupted you. You're about to talk about year two, perhaps, or after year one's complete.
Yeah, so towards the midway of year one, there'll be some part-time work that'll start, and it's typically 10 to 20 hours a week, and the students will get paid an allowance. So it's like a part-time salary that they'll get paid, and then towards the end of the year, so from about month 9 onwards, if they're progressing well, there'll be some testing along the way as to how they're going. Perhaps there's the opportunity to then go into even full-time work, and it'll be a proper full-time salary. So it's quite conceivable, if they're doing well, that they can be on into a job and working within the first 12 months. And then from the second year on, they'll start getting assigned to their customers and into their teams.
Amazing. And when you say assigned to customers, what does that mean in reality for students?
Yeah, sure. So with different customers, so it might be a bank. They will actually work on site at the bank. So the banks have centres where all the staff are located, and so they'll work alongside them there. And so they'll be interacting with bank staff as well as the HCL staff. So it's quite a professional environment, and they'll be helped along as to what are the right things to be doing in these sort of environments, how to behave, when to turn up to work, when not. So yeah, they'll be well supported along the way. But the working environment is quite flexible. There's a lot more working from home now, particularly since the COVID times, and a lot of us, and like you can see me now, I'm at home. I only go into the office about once a week, and that's fairly typical for everyone at the moment. So quite a choice. If you want to be in the office all the time, that's well available.
Nice. The new world of
Yeah.
work, huh?
Yeah, the new world of work. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
why should students look to HCL for a career in IT or STEM? How is it a great trajectory for their careers?
Yeah, sure. So what I'll do, Sophie, is I'll talk about parallels to my own experience. So I started in the same sort of program, although it was a long time ago. It was 40 years ago. And it was before they had university degrees in IT. It was just, in those days, the only IT degree was a computer science degree. And it wasn't typically, it was more towards, I would say, research and things like that. It wasn't geared towards commercial IT. And at the time, IT was growing very fast, very, very fast. And we couldn't, in those days, get people in IT as well. So therefore, there were these similar sort of programs that kicked off where companies had to train in-house. And that's how I started. So I started in a bank at 17 years of age. I'd left school and they did an aptitude test and offered me to go into what they called the data center in those days. And I was trained the same way, doing courses, virtual courses, but they didn't have online in those days. It was done by videotape and a manual. And we learnt on the job. So in those days we did 2 weeks of work, 1 week of training, 2 weeks of work, 1 week of training, and also did a university degree part-time externally. And that's given me a fantastic degree, so a career, sorry. So obviously 40 years later, I'm still working. It's been great. I've been able to work all over the world. IT is very international. So any IT that you learn in Australia is the same IT skills that are used in the US, in Europe, throughout the world. Everyone uses the same languages, the same system. So it is very transportable. Every organization in the world needs IT. And so you're never going to be without work. So for me, it's been a fantastic career, and for many, many others of my colleagues has been as well. It's supported me throughout my marriage, my children. It's educated my children. All of the salaries and things like that have been very, very good. So for a student coming in now, I see these times is very similar to what happened 40 years ago, where there's more requirement for people in IT than there are in the market. And therefore, it's a great time for people to get into that industry and start with it. And they, if they like it, there's a career there for the rest of their lives. So I think it's a great start.
Amazing and such good advice. I think we can see really how technology impacts our lives. Our audience would know,
Yeah,
just by the launch of a new app, and that can change a whole market. For example, TikTok
correct.
or
Yeah,
Instagram. So I think it's definitely a career of the future and a hot space to be in.
yeah. And what you've got to think of is that for every one of those apps, there's been people behind it writing that app, not only the presentation to what the end user uses, but all the data and analytics and that goes with it, all the support that goes with it. The cloud environments have to be built behind it. So there's so much work that happens in the background that we need people to do.
Completely. You've answered my question, but I was going to ask the
Yeah,
IT STEM sector in Australia right now. You've said
yeah,
IT is international and it's a hot market. Are there
yeah.
any insights you can provide to students looking to go down this path?
Yeah, so like I was saying, and again, I'll give my own experience. I've been able to, I started my learning. I'm in Perth in Western Australia. I started learning there. My early career was there. I moved to Melbourne. I worked in Melbourne for a period. And then I came back to Perth. I then worked in Kuala Lumpur for a couple of sets of times. I worked in Singapore. I worked in San Diego in the US. I worked in Surrey in the UK. And all of this is using those skills that I learned as a student and as a trainee, back all those times ago. So, as I was saying, very international. Everyone needs IT. You'll never be out of work. You'll always be learning. It never stops changing. It's never boring, that's for sure, because it changes so fast. And yeah, and I can only see that's going to continue for many, many decades yet. And who knows what we'll be using and what we'll be doing in 20 or 30 years' time.
Amazing. And I'd love to ask, touching on your own career, what has been
Yeah.
a career highlight for you in the sector?
Oh, okay. Well, without telling, I'm telling the truth here. It's actually been the work with HCL that I've done in the last 7 years because of the fantastic stuff that we have been doing. We do help a lot of organisations. We do help a lot of people, and I think something that a lot of people underestimate is how much we underpin the economies and in all sectors. And if you think of just the healthcare sector and all of the work that occurs and all of the IT that's involved in that, it's that sort of work that you're very, very proud of. So one part of my career we implemented was hospital management systems and patient care systems for a chain of public hospitals. And I can still see those systems. Like if I go into that public hospital now, I still see those systems that we ran and I managed to put in. They're still running now and supporting all of those people that come into those hospitals from the moment they arrive in accident and emergency to when their blood's taken, it goes off to pathology, the billing, the pharmaceuticals, and through to the operating theatres. All of those systems, I'm very, very proud that we implemented them. And I helped manage to put that in there. So, yeah, it's very satisfying.
So a career in IT is actually helping society, helping people.
Correct. Yeah. I think to help people on scale, there's no better platform to do it with.
Completely. Especially what I see is, and what you perhaps don't see as a student, is that IT teams underpin organisations.
Correct.
Interact with every team within an organisation and ultimately help their colleagues out and facilitate projects.
Yeah. Everything. Like even if you're in New South Wales and you go into a cafe and you use your COVID app to scan in, HCL is running that in the background.
Oh, that's a celebrity. Very cool.
Yeah. So, yes, those sort of things that we're doing.
Amazing. And would you say that a career in IT and STEM can be lifelong?
Absolutely. And I'm living proof of that. Yeah. And you can do it for decades and decades and decades. Like I was saying, you never get bored because there's always something new. It's always changing, always expanding. So it's great.
Amazing. I guess we don't really know what the future looks like 10, 20 years away. What will the future of IT look like? Or perhaps you have further insight to me.
No, I don't. No. So, if I think back to when I was the age of some of the people that will be listening to this and watching this, there's no way that I would imagine that we would be doing this, Sophie, to start with. But, mobile phones, we didn't even have email back then. It just didn't exist. So it's just come ahead so far. And as far as social media goes, the internet didn't exist.
Completely. I mean, even 2 years ago, virtual backgrounds on Zoom didn't using new technology to hide my background here. So it's a career. It sounds like a really exciting first step and a way to really become hands-on with the HCL TechBee program.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Well, Michael, thank you so much for talking to me today and talking to the Year 13 audience. Did you have anything you wanted to add before we wrap up?
Jump into it. That's what I advise. The money's good, the career's good, and it's good fun as well. Yeah.
And students can inquire via the Year 13 HCL TechBee program on site. So just lodge a question below and Vaish in the Australian team will get in touch with you.
Yeah, fantastic, Sophie. Great to talk to you.
Same with you, Michael. Thanks so much.
Okay, bye-bye.